Alright, so let's continue our. So let's say I want to break this into another page, so we have something tie this up a bit. So let's create another. Still lesson 6 continue. So I would save that as lesson 6 still form, and that is going to be HTML. Save that as HTML, and then I can have my HTML 5, and I can have this to be, let's say, 2 forms. Working with form elements. Alright, so in the first part we introduce ourselves to the input type equals to text, input type equals to of course password, and type equals to submit. So we want to see other input type that we have and other form elements that we've got. Alright, so continuing in the inputs area, so we have email. Let me say I have a label. Okay, input type equals to email. Alright, so this is before HTML5. If you want to have email, so you have to use type equals to text for any input that you want to get from the user, provided is an input. So you have already like that, but this is a problem. When you have to do some validation, you have to probably have to write your JavaScript to support, check if it's in email format and all of that. But type equals to email, it just come by default that the any content that has to be here must be in email format. You know what email format is? Email format is usually having user at domain.com. So any inputs that will come in here needs to be formatted as such. So what that means is if we have to do a validation, which we are going to do, that you see, and if that content is not an email content, and it means the form won't get submitted. Alright, so we have input type equals to email, and then let's say we give it a name equals to email address. This name is your making, is what you would use to identify this input from. And when you're taking the content to the server, so your scripting, whether it's PHP, whether it's Java, whatever it is that you're using, this is what you are using to identify the input element. Alright, so the same reason you're giving it a name, you're giving a name, that's the reason you're giving. So let's say we have this to be email address, and we didn't use value attribute earlier on. So value attribute is the default value that would be inside your input field. So whether it's input type equals to text, whether if type equals to password, or type equals to emails, you can set a default value. Alright, so default value could be set, so I can say user at domain.com, and that would be the contents of it. Alright, so another thing that I want us to have is required. So it means it needs to be supplied. So this requires is the validation that you have to fill this form, so it's a required field. Alright, so whether is any of these elements at all, if you want them required, so just put required as part of the attribute of that. So type, put its name, and then if it has an initial value or default value that you want to set, you put value equals to that thing that you want to set, and then required equals to so you put required. So required, just like this. Alright, so this is going to make this required. So continuing the line that we've been doing, so let's say we have this to be label, and so I say email address. So you know what your label is. Label is telling us about what is expected of us. So let's say I have it that way, and if I go into my page, lesson 6b, I refresh it, I right click and open with my Chrome, then I'm going to have something like that. So I have email address, and I have a default value user at domain.com. At domain, that's what I set as the default value. All right, and you might want to confuse this with a placeholder. This is not a placeholder. Earlier on, when we use a placeholder, when you start typing, the placeholder disappears. But this one, when you type, the content joins the value that you have. So this is pretty much like you have typed it. So that is a value is set there initially. All right. So if I delete this now, so that has no content. So it was a placeholder. The moment the content leaves, it shows up. All right. So you can still go ahead and put a placeholder here if you want. Placeholder, but placeholder pretty much do the same thing like that this label does. So just to guide the user so that they will know where to put what. All right. So I would put the placeholder and say your email address. So when I have this, now when I refresh this, I'll still be seeing the users at domain.com. When I remove this, I can see the placeholder there. So the placeholder is just there to hold positions and guide users on what is expected of them. Alright, so we can have that. Okay, so that is input type equals to email. So later on we'll see how that gets this required would be fired. Okay, so let's continue other inputs. There are a lot of input elements, especially in HTML5. So I'm going to break it. So continue in that line. The next inputs that I want us to check out is radio. So we have, let's say we want to put options, gender for instance. So we want our users to select whether they are male or female, or we have an array of options and we want them to select only one out of the option. Okay, so how you do this is just create an input type that is radio. So if I have something like this, input type equals to radio. All right, so input type equals to radio, and you can give it a name. Name equals to, let's say I call it gender. Okay, and something like that. Then I can have it as, let's say, male. So if I have this refresh, so I can see a radio button that's having this thing in between. So let me create some sort of an imaginary paragraph. So there's a space in between this and that. So I can see this only male for now because there's no its counterpart is not there. So I can create another one. So still gender, and I call this a female. Now the point is I need now to separate this from this. So I'm going to give this an ID. So an ID is what differentiates this from this. They already have the same name because they are both gender, and this is reasons they will be working together. So I have ID equals to male, and then here I have ID equals to female. ID equals to female. So if I have this saved and come in here, so I'll have two input fields, so male, female. So you notice that when you check one, the other get unchecked, so like that. So it's not possible for you to check the two at the same time. So you can be a male and still be a female. You just have to decide on which side you want to be. But this is made possible because they share common name. So the moment I come here and call this a different name, just has something to it that makes it distinct from these. Genders and gender are not the same. So when I do this, it means they are not working together anymore, and then users can then select both of them together like this. So if this is what you want, you give them different names so users can select all of them. But if you want them to work together, even if there are like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 or 20 of them, users will only be able to select one. So when I say gender like this, so if I say, let me put another, so still this name gender, so I call this undecided. So if I have that as undecided, so I have undecided. So the ID that you give, it's not a must that it goes with what you're typing here, but it just makes sense that you give an ID that relates to what you mean. But pretty much you could have put anything in here. What you're just using the ID for is to differentiate one from the other, and then if you want to target it, you have a reference point to target. So if I have it like that, so there are three now, so the three are working together, so it mustn't be like because it's gender it got to be two. You can add any number, so we have this female, undecided, like that. So I can have it continuous like that, so I can have 10 of it. So, and because they're having the same name, each time I check one, the other gets unchecked, so they're working as radio group, they're working as a group. Alright, so that is that about this. So I can create a label. Let me create a label, and just like we've been doing, create a label and call that gender. So I call this gender, and probably you want it broken. There's a break, so it follows the other idea that you have been using. So email, the fields, gender, radio group. Alright, so another fields I want us to explore is what we call the checkbox. So checkbox and radio button are similar, especially if the radio buttons are not working as a group. So you're able to select, you're able to check a number of radio buttons together. So select is the one that is appropriate for that. If you want a group of item where people can select more than one, but if you have a group of item and only one selection is possible, then radio group or radio button is your go-to. Then if you have a group of item and you have people can select more than one item, then checkbox will be appropriate. So in any case, you are the one in charge, so you decide which one you want to use. Alright, so the next thing I want us to have is, so let's say we have a BR, break that and have an imaginary paragraph also. So after that, we look at that impute type, and input type equals to checkbox. So I'll use checkbox. It's pretty much similar attributes. Give it a name. Let's say name equals to favorite color. So I give it a name and I call it fav color. That's my favorite color. Okay, and I can make this required as well. Okay, we already make that guy required, so you can make this required. You can put anything that you want. So name equals to favorite color, and you can give it an ID, you can give it and all of that. So let's say we have this, so and this is green. So see how that appears. So you can see a checkbox, so it's different from this radio group. Alright, so let me give it a label, just like label. So choose your favorite color. Choose your favorite color. So I have that, so I'm just gonna have this repeated. I have that repeated. So input type equals to checkbox, name equals to favorite color. So let me make this green now. Name equals to green, so you know what is checked. So they don't have to be of the same name. Then let's say this one is yellow. This one is red. So I can have this name yellow, and then I can have this name red. So the list can continue like that. So I can have them that way. So I can have name equals to blue, blue. Now if we refresh this, so we're going to see it's choose the favorite color, so someone can choose this and that and that and that all together. So compare that to this, that when you choose one, the other gets unchecked, so only one selection is possible. So you know what you're designing for, you know the content of your form, so you are totally in charge of picking what you feel is necessary. Alright, so if for instance now we put in a submit button, so let's say we break this, just we'll have this like this, we have this broken and we have it like that. So we have impute type equals to submit, okay, and then a value of our submit is submit, let's say register or whatever. So let's say we have this like that. So, and don't forget that I told us that when you have the form, you want to have a form submitted, they need to be wrapped around the form tag. Okay, so we have it like this. Let's say I have it around form tag, and this is the only way it's going to behave like a form, and that can be submitted. So both of them are working together now like one single form. Okay, now if this guy doesn't have a default set value, if I have it like he doesn't have a default set value, when I try to submit, you'll see a notification that will come to that email. You say, please fill out this field. So because it's a required field and it's empty, so the form is not going to get submitted until the required field is filled out. Okay, so even if I then come and put something, I just came in here and I put Steve Jobs. You remember that what you use as the type of this field is email, and what you're supplying is not an email. So when you register, it still says something, because this is why you have to. You can see, please include an @ in the email address. Steve Jobs is missing an @ All right, so that's the result of a validation that required, and because you're using that alongside an input type that is an email, so it's not going to take anything except email, and then of course you have to type something in there. So that's required. So until you give it, it's not going to allow you go. All right, so if you put something like this, me at yahoo.com, now then I register, and then it will try to go try to submit it. We're not handling submission yet, so just learning the form. So that's about that. So we've introduced ourselves to emails, we've introduced ourselves to radio, we've introduced ourselves to Checkbox. So let's move on along that line. So there are a couple of other input types that are introduced in HTML5. So let's explore them. Input type equals to number. Input type equals to number. So let's say I have something like this. Input type equals to number, and then you can give it a name, give it everything, every other thing. Name equals to say age. Tell us your age. So you can give it any name, and then let's say it's required, it's compulsory that they supply this. Alright, so let's give it a label, and then we have specify your age. Okay, so working the same way that we've been working, we break that as well. Now, so if you go in there and refresh it, so we're going to see a field, and this field is something that is scrollable. It goes up and down, so you can go in there and type it, and then you can move on like that. Okay, you can move on like that. So because it's required, if I don't supply it, it's not going to allow me go. Similar to this one, please fill out this field. You have to supply it, and this is because it's a required field. Okay, so we have that like that. So I can equally specify a step here. So that is, it kept jumping by 1, that's units. So if I want it to move by a factor of 10, okay, so I can say step is 10. So if I go in there now, so I type a value 10. So if I move up, the next value will be 20. So it will be using my step that I specify. So like that, so it's not going to be using 1 2 3 like that. So you can specify any step, and it jumps by the specified step. Alright, so that's input type equals to number, and every other attribute still valid to any other input field. Okay, so another one that we want to introduce ourselves to is input type equals to date. Input type equals to date. Input type equals to date. So if I have something here, let me just bring this here down here, and I have input type equals to date. So name equals to, let's say, any name. You can say date of birth. Alright, so date of birth, and you can equally make that required if you like. That's if it's compulsory, so you make it required. So any field that you put required, it means it's compulsory. Then you may want to give it a label, so you want to give it a label, so you have label, and label is tell us your date of birth. So if you have that saved and we will refresh, then we'll see something. So tell us the date of birth, and we can see month, day, year, and if you click in here, you're going to see a calendar. So that's selectable. If you pick that, it shows you the dates of that. If you pick that, it shows you the date of that. So you have the gender, you have the favorite color, and you have the specified range. So you have something like this, and the date of birth is is also selectable. All right, so that is input type equals to date. Now moving on along the same line, you just keep noting them down for your reference. I'm not showing you slides, so you can just speak. Type equals to email, radio, checkbox. We've done text before now, we've done password, and we've done submit. Okay, so keep having them. Another thing I want us to have is input type equals to file. Input type equals to file. So if you want to do file upload, you use input type equals to file to pick file from a content directory. So let me say I have input type equals to file. So give it a name, so you can have multiple type that is file. So you separate one. So I can say you want to use this to pick profile image, so you name it based on what you're using it for. So profile image, you have that. You can make that required. You can specify anything. So you can say, you can equally give it a label. So you can say let's say this label is upload profile image. Upload profile image. So when you have that saved, then by the time you refresh, so you can see something like that. Upload profile image, you can see no file selected, so I can choose this. When I choose file, then I can have that's there, so I can have something like that. Alright, so resources, so you can pick any file of your choice. So let's say I want to upload jobs, so I can upload this. So this file is picked. So what shows up here is the function of which browser you're using, so you can have that. So this is the label that was specified. I've shown us how to arrange form before, and we're still going to be doing layouts with CSS later on, but you can easily do that with table, so to make it look a bit interesting. Alright, so this is another input type equals to file. Okay, so moving on along, still input fields. So let's say we have something like this. Input type equals to color. Or before we go into input type equals to color, let's say we want to the date here has day, month, and year, and you want, for some reasons you want it separated. So HTML have house cover. So input type equals to you have input type equals to week, or input type equals to year. So let me say input type equals to week is what I want to use. Now I can have that as week and then give it a name equals to, you know, week or whatever. So I can have that saved. Okay, so when we refresh that, we have something like this. So this is pretty much like dates, still dates, but the only thing that you're having there is, week selected. So you can have week 34 um, 2019. So if you're working on an application that has to do with a week, you are doing some sort of computation or analysis with week. So, and rather than you working yourself writing scripts, so you can just use input type because so week, and you have so so you're able to put labels. I've just been putting labels, so you can just for us to, so I say specify the week. Alright, so that's does that. So if I have that broken, everything broken, so everything follows suit. Alright, so and the next thing I want to have is input type equals to mount, which is in line with still date fields. So input type equals to mount, input type equals to mount. Alright, so input type equals to mount, and let's say we have you can give it a name equals to mount or amount of something. All right, so you know why you need it. Like I told us earlier on, this element will depend on the kind of form that you're designing. All right, so it's not like we have to pack all of them inside one form all the time. So it depends on the use case of the form. So, and let's say here I have select month of employment. So let's have select month of employment. Alright, so and say I break that and like that. So if you refresh, you'll see something amazing. So we can have select month of employment, and when you have this, if you select like this, you can see August 2019. This one is showing us, the selection is showing us week, and this one is showing us these things. Why this date shows everything. This shows the week, and this shows the month. Okay, still along the input types. So, and like I said, when you submit, if anything that is not specified would and is required would not go through. All right, so still working with input fields, there are a lot of it. So let's work with input type equals to color. So input type equals to color. So for some reasons, if you are doing some sort of advanced application and you want to do some graphics, and you want to code, so color application and all of that, so you may want to have this. This is pretty much handy, and it's quite interesting. So you must have seen it. You'll see it now. Input type equals to color. Input type equals to color. Name equals to alright, so you can give it any name of your choice. So let me say you give it a name attribute. Name equals to my favorite color, so 5 color. Alright, so this is another representation. The other time that we used checkbox for favorite color. So let's say I want to use something like this. So, and there are a lot of colors. I only mentioned 4 there, and this one is going to give me pretty much all color mixture. So I can say select your favorite color. Alright, so if I do that and make this I go into the next line, so if we refresh, we're going to see something. and this field is a color field. If you click on it, you'll see a color palette. So now you can choose, just in case you don't know color name, you can just choose, and you can have your color. And in fact, here you can have a mix of multiple colors together, so you can have it mixed, and you have something like that. And you can then use this color, later on, by the time we start using stuff like JavaScript, we can get the value of what the person selected, and we can use that value to do something. Let's say we can apply it as a background, apply it as something else, but I don't want to go there now because that's going to get you confused. I've not introduced you to it. So we have, so you can select this. Of course, as well, you can set its default value. So when you say this default value of this should be red, for instance, so when when it comes alive, it should show that okay, there is, let me put f00. I'm going to introduce you to this later on. So is not picking my, okay, not an issue, we would work with this a bit later on. So I have this as my input type equals to color. So there are still more to learn under input type equals to input types. So common ones, so let me still, I think I skipped this. Input type equals to tail. So if I need to receive a telephone, so I can have input type equals to tel. So if what I want to get is telephone number, so I just have input type equals to text, tel rather. So name equals to cell phone, or name equals to tel. If I like, I can make it required if it's compulsory that they supply their phone number. So here I say telephone. So I have that saved. So if you refresh, you are going to have it like that, and this is expecting a phone number. So if you put something else that is not a phone number, is not valid. So it has to be a phone number. So you can see that that is pretty much similar to your text field. So originally, before all this amazing stuff, we pretty much use text field for everything. So everybody, email text field, date of birth text field, even date itself text field. But now you can have separation of of duties. Alright, so I can have that. So let me have this as BR as well. So that's input type equals to text. Now moving on to another one. So let me have this downward as well. So input type equals to time. We've done week, we've done number, and then we've done the amount. So let's say we have input type equals to time, and you can name it, name equals to, give it any name of your choice depending on what you're using it for. So you can say schedule date or schedule. Alright, so we have something like this, and this is label, and in the label, let's say we have yes, I say select your scheduled time, or select your schedule. Alright, so if we have this, let me make it so it follows through its colleague. So we have this refresh, so we can have this as, this is time, this is hour, and then minutes, and this is seconds. So you can have that as AM and or PM, and we have this as like this. That's hour, and then minutes, and then if the time, depending on which time scales they're using, AM or PM, like that. So that's input type equals to time. Okay, so moving along that same line, we have some more input fields. So let me say I want to go into type equals to range. You want to specify a range, okay? So let's say we have input type equals to range. Say name equals to, give it any name, let's say price range or something like that. So name equals to price range. Okay, so we can have something like that. So say we select this, give it price range, a label price range, and have it as BR. Okay, now if I have that saved and move on to my browser to check through, so I have a slider that shows like that, and this slider I can specify the limits, so I can specify the minimum and a maximum. Okay, so let's say I have the minimum value, even the time as well. We can specify the minimum time and the maximum time. We can specify all of that. So let's say I have this as min as minimum, and let's say I'm specifying minimum to be a 5, and let's say maximum to be a 10. Okay, let's say we have something like this, and then we have step. That's how it moves from one step to the other. Let's say the step is 1 each. Alright, so if I have that saved, so by the time I do this, so because I specify that it should start at the minimum is 5 and the maximum is 10, and the step is 1. So each step I move it will be 1. It's increasing by 1, but that's not a price. So let's say the price range, we're specifying the minimum to be equals to 5,000, and the maximum to be equals to 25,000, and then the range, the step is 1,000 each. So I can have that saved. So each step would indicate what's it called, 1,000. That's the step. It should be 1,000. Alright, so that's input type equals to range, and we've been able to explore that. So let's see another one. Input type equals to search. Now input type equals to search. Type equals to search. Now if you want to do a search, you can just use a text box and put a button beside it. But when you use this, there are a couple of things that comes with it. So name equals to search, or name equals to keyword, or whatever it is that you want to call it. You may make it required. Every other attribute that we've been using are valid, except this minimum, maximum, and step thing, because this is not expecting figures. It's not expecting numbers, so you can put anything in there. It could be anything. So this minimum, maximum won't be valid for it. So let's say we have that. If you refresh this, so you see this field like this. It's not different from, let's say, this, or if I had used a text field. But then if you start typing something, you'll see that it shows this. You type it on this doesn't show that. Alright, so it's an attribute of a search that when you type, you may want to cancel that search and type something else. And then when it is displayed on mobile, the keyboard that will be shown after typing this, you will see a search or enter keyboard on your keyboard as you type. You keep typing this on mobiles. You can have that tested. It's going to show or search button, so that just after typing that you can just hit enter and it searches for us. So that's a kind of like using the right distance for it, but easily you could have used type equals to text as well. So we've been able to do some more new input types. All right, so there are a couple of them. There is another one that we have input type equals to reset. So if I want to reset all the content of my page, all my forms to default, so every single thing that I've filled in, I want to cancel it out. I want to start all over. I don't have to start deleting them one after the other. I can just put in this button. So input type equals to reset. So you restart everything back to default. So name equals to, let's say, reset, like that. So this is going to be like a button. Now, so if we have this, so we have this reset button, and if I type something here, Kenny at gmail.com, then pick, let's say that I'm a male, age range, I just put something ridiculous, and then date of birth, just anything, week, pick something, and pick favorite color to be something like this, and okay, put a phone number that is 08 something something something. Alright, so the time I may put something like that, just pick anything, and then make this one a PM, and then price range I can just put anything I want, and then this is a search. I'm not searching for anything. Now when I click on, I've filled a lot, and these forms are a lot, so if I click on reset, everything just got removed and it got back to default. So sometimes you need this, sometimes you need it, but sometimes it could be disastrous if someone has filled a form that is very lengthy, by mistake, instead of him to click on register, he just clicked on reset. That would be how disastrous. So later on in JavaScript we can handle that. So we want to ask the person if he is really sure of what he wants to do, and then when he says he's sure, then we can go ahead and reset it, and if he says he's not sure, then we can leave his data in there. But for now, let's deal with what we've got. Alright, so that's that about that. So we equally have input type equals to URL. Input type equals to URL. Still working with that. I would want that to be here. Input type equals to URL. Impute type equals to URL. Okay, so when you have input type equals to URL, there are a couple of things that you do there. You know what URL is, we used earlier on. So, and it means what you're expecting is a link. Alright, so if you're asking people to put in the type, their website address and all of those things, you want to enforce that they put the right format that you're expecting. You don't want people to just scam you, and just like we did in email. So we can say input type equals to URL. Okay, and give it a name. You can give it a name equals to, let's say, web address. Alright, so you can give it a placeholder. Placeholder is valid for all these input fields that we got here, and except a few of them, like say checkbox and all of that. So we have input type equals to URL, name equals to web address, and you may specify pattern. Of that you are expecting. Okay, so the pattern that you're expecting, if you want people to specify www, you can put that. If you want people to do just HTTPS, you can put that. So let's say we have what we're expecting is HTTP, like this. Alright, so HTTP, and something that matches all, that's every single thing else. So we can have something like that. So that's the pattern of expectation, and we can say your website address, please. So I have that as break. Now if I refresh this, now we can have your website address, please, and this is expecting a website address. So then if I go ahead and make it required, so the required, it means it has to follow it and it needs to be filled in. If you don't put required, then this there's really no essence of you saying type equals to URL, because if anything comes, it takes. Alright, so required is what is going to make it enforce that. So if anybody submit this now, we see that it's asking for specify range, and I put um, 12. If I submit again, it goes to the next required. It says please enter a valid value. The two nearest value must be, so I think we specify minimum and maximum. So if I do this, it goes to tell us the date of your birth, which is also a required. I can pick anything, and it goes to the next required field. Telephone number needs to be filled in. Then I put anything. So the next thing it puts in, it comes to, is specify your website. So I put something like this. So you can see that please enter a URL, because I've entered something but it doesn't match the pattern I specified. So that's why it's not saying it like that. So it needs to be as specified. So this is how is needed. So we have something like that, and then it now takes it. Alright, so you can do that. You can equally specify the size of the URL. So let's say we specify size. So let's say size equals to 30, for instance. So that's the length that you're expecting. So you can have, so you can see that is longer than the rest. So that is the width of your input field. In the lesson that we did earlier on, I think in lesson 5 or lesson 6, we showed ourselves how to increase the length of an input field. So this is just a reminder of that. Now for all of these input fields that we have, you may want to specify the maximum length, maximum length of text that is what expected. So you don't want anyone to type more than that. Okay, so you could come in here and type max length. So max length is the maximum expected length. So let's say we don't expect more than 10. So anyone that's going to try to type more than 10, you can't do that. Alright, so I can go into any of the fields that might be of interest. So let's say where it will be more appropriate. You can specify that in type equals the number as well. You can specify maximum length, and let's say in the email address as well. So I don't want your email to be too long. If your email is too long, and I want you to do something about it. Alright, so we have maximum length, and I don't want to take more than 30 characters or 20 characters or something like that. For some reasons that is best known to me, so I can just do that. So let me specify a number that is very small, so we can just have a practical feel of this maximum length. You notice that this user's a domain is more than 5. So let's see what happens to it. So if you refresh now, so we have that saved. Now if I take this off and I put, the maximum length is 5, so I have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. I'm typing and nothing is coming on board again. So it no longer works, because I've exhausted the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So nothing else can come in here again. Even if you continue to type, I'm still typing and nothing is coming in there. So that's because I've exceeded my limit. So it's not practical for us to use the length of an email to be 5. Even .com has taken 4 out of this thing alone. So, and some website has even their own domain is like 20 characters. So you may want to put this as 50 or something like that. So you just don't want something that will be too long. So for some reasons you want to put maximum length, and that would do that. Okay, So this about the impute fields. These are impute fields. So I think we should break this and move other form elements to another lesson. Alright, so join me in another lesson.